All right, let's give it a 30 seconds more. We see some of our guests are still joining in. Thank you, Shahriar, for joining. Thank you, Trevor Nelson, for joining us. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Miswaak. Let's talk. Today's session is very special because we are going to talk about something that directly impact every professional's journey. Your resume, your positioning, and your growth. So we all apply, we all try, but every few understands that why actually makes a resume stands out in front of the hiring manager. And today we are here to learn exactly that thing. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest for today. Before going into that, I also want to wish everyone around the world Eid Mubarak, and also to have a very, very safe and festive Eid around in your home and outside of the home, anywhere you have. Now, let me introduce our guest today. It is my really absolute a pleasure to introduce my guest today, which is James Grimm. He's a senior IT and data center leader with over 20 years of experience, a Navy veteran, and an award-winning author. So he was reviewing hundreds, if not thousands maybe, or of resumes throughout his career and has been directly responsible for hiring decision. So today we are not talking theory, we are learning directly from an experienced personnel, from someone who has been on the other side of the table, who we always fear. So, James, welcome to the session. We are truly honored to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Uh, so, thank you so much, James. Let me before going into the next phase, right? Uh, I would like to seek your permission if you want to me to share the screen right now, or if you have anything to share.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Okay. Let me share the screen with James slides. Okay. And to the audience who are joining us on Zoom, also following us on YouTube and Facebook, maybe, if you cannot hear me properly, uh, do let us know. Comment anywhere, and or maybe you can unmute yourself and say we are not audible. With that note, James, over to you, please.
All right, thank you. Okay, there you go. Okay. So just a quick background. I've spent probably about since the 2000 roughly being part or participating in the hiring process. Initially, it was more where I would be one of the people that the hiring manager would ask to please go ahead and interview the candidate, and where I'd look at the resumes and learn how the hiring managers would make decisions. And then I became hiring manager in through a few different companies where I've actually been responsible for doing that. So, okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So let's go ahead and first talk about some of the myths around resumes or the job hunting process. Okay. First one, I'll go ahead and read these off. I apologize, but just in case anyone doesn't have the video in front of them. So only having a one-page resume. So there really is no set way of doing this, and you only need a one-page resume if the company specifically asks for a one-page resume only. Now, if you don't have enough data and it just fills one page, that is fine. One of the things I always suggest to people is if you only have a few lines on the second page, you probably want to try to squeeze it into the first page because there's probably something you can take out. Don't try to have just a few lines on the second page or the last page. So always try to have at least about half of that page just to go ahead and make it look full. Um, Second one, you only need to get past ATS. This is something that has come up in the last few years. ATS, for the most part, what that is just a kind of a candidate resume database that they use filtering words to go and say, I need someone that knows network engineering and Cisco. So that's what they'll look for. And when people are talking about that you are trying to get past the ATS system, it's it's not really something that you should worry about. You should try to apply for jobs that are related to the job description, and the jobs that you can also do well. So if you keep to that logic, you'll probably be fine with passing most of the ATS systems out there. You'll never be 100% perfect because there's always going to be someone that has a very unique way of doing it. But if you're shooting for that kind of job, then you're probably not worried about doing everything else. You'll just have to get really specific. So you don't need to get past the ATS. Okay. The third one, which is a really big one, is I'm qualified, but they ignore me. All right. That is most jobs have only one position open. And you are just one, especially nowadays, one of many, many candidates. I've my last few times of hiring people, I usually get batches of around 50 resumes at a time, and I can usually get another batch within a day or two if I needed another one. So that's how many people you're going against, and there's only one job normally for most of these positions. So they only one person can actually get the job. So you're not that you're not qualified. It's just that they pick someone else over you. Okay. And that's something you're going to have to learn to live with, that you will not always be the best person, even if you're qualified. So please don't get upset about that. Realize that you could be qualified. It's just either you didn't present your information well enough to be selected, or that someone was better. It happens. No one's the best. Okay. All right. And the last one is most job posts are fake. Some of them, I'm not going to disagree that some of these could be fake, but posting jobs costs money. Either you're retaining a recruiter and you got to pay the recruiting company, or you're applying or you're putting job posts on like LinkedIn or other services. Those cost money. If all you're doing is fake jobs, you're just throwing money away. So I wouldn't doubt that some of these are actually just basically farming for resumes, but the majority, I believe, are actually looking for people. So don't think about that too much because it'll send you in a different direction. You don't need to think about that. What you need to do is try to always have your resume the best it can be to get the job that you wish. Okay. Next page, please. Okay, and let's talk about some truths about resume writing or job hunting. And only the hiring manager decides who gets an interview. Now, this is my experience in the different companies I've worked in. It's also experience I know from talking to other recruiters or hiring managers. The hiring manager decides, not the recruiter, not HR, no one else. There will be some unique instances where a hiring manager might have to listen to some other people, but the majority of the times, and all the times that I actually did hiring, I decided who actually got interviews. Okay. There's also no set rule for resume formats or content. Going back to like the one page thing, unless a company specifically asks for it, there should be no rules that you do your resume. Your resume should be written so that way you provide the reader the quickest chance to go ahead and have see if they're getting interested in your resume. Okay. So you don't have to worry about anyone telling you you have to have it this format, you have to have it this form. It's it's your decision, but realize the goal is to get the interview. And to get an interview, you have to show, or the hiring manager has to be excited about you. And if he's not excited, that probably is because you're not formatting your resume in a way that they want to see the information. Okay. Another thing about resumes, especially the more interesting or cool looking resume formats that are out there now. I personally don't care for those because a lot of them you are having to bounce around the resume to find information. And, I, um, a quick scenario of what my normal day is when I was looking for going through resumes is I usually would look at resumes during lunchtime while I'm eating, or sometimes during a break period if I have between meetings or something, or after hours when I'm done with all my other tasks, my meetings, whatever, and I'm waiting to go home. As you can imagine, none of those periods are really conducive to actually sitting down and looking at a resume. You're trying to go quickly. And what I found is the majority of resumes are kind of vague. They don't really provide a lot of information. And I'll go and show examples later in the slides. But so I quickly go through and I probably hit the top half of the first page. And if I'm not excited, I move on to the next resume. So that's the part you have to go ahead and excite someone. Okay. Next one. Most jobs only have one position, as I mentioned earlier. So again, if you don't get a particular job, or don't set your hopes on one job. Um, there is hundreds of people applying, and the chances that you're going to be the perfect one all the time is try to do the best you can to get into the candidates that become interviewed, and then you have to have good interviewing skills as well, which is not covered in this presentation, but that is something else you need to consider. Okay. And as I mentioned a minute ago, most resumes include vague or generic statement. 90% of the resumes fall into that category. And I'll show you examples of what I mean in the coming slides. Or did you lock up? Nope. Unstable network connection. Okay. While he's moving or trying to get to the next slide, let me go and just read what my next slide is. So we'll maybe go to a little quicker. Um, so the next slide, oh, there we go. Cool. So the job of a resume is to get an interview. The job of the interview is to go ahead and get you hired. Okay, so realize that again, this is just one piece, but without this piece, you can't get to the interview the majority of times. There will always be those unique cases where you might be able to get it, but it will not always happen that way. So please pay attention to your resume, concentrate on doing a good job there. I know a lot of people probably consider this more, I have to do this, but realize this is like the rest of your job. If you don't have a good resume, you're not going to be able to get to the next level. Okay. Also, that the resume shows you what your career's like, or as a lot of people say, what do you bring to the table? So this is how you go ahead and explain to the manager, you need to talk to me because I have the skill sets that you want. I like to tell people to consider yourself sitting at a table with peers, people that do the same type of job you do. How would you tell them that you're actually, like, you have a lot of experience in the field or you're the best at the table? You normally don't say it with a generic statement. You don't say something like, I answer help desk tickets. Everybody in that group probably does the same thing. What you might say is, I handle 100 tickets per week, or that I have a 99.7% customer satisfaction survey return off of over 1,000 tickets. That's the kind of stuff then you are comparing others to, and they have to compare to you. When you just say I do tickets, it's kind of vague. So it's not going to really help. And that's what the majority of people put in their resumes. And that's something that you need to go beyond to go ahead and be one of those people that is always considered. Okay. And the last statement here is it allows a hiring manager to match your previous experience against what they need for the job. When I was looking at resumes, especially the ones once I get past the top part, and I'm actually looking at the resume because the person had or got me interested in their resume, is I try to imagine what they were doing in their jobs. And I use the information they provide to decide that. The less information, the more vague or blurry that vision is. And if it's too vague in most of their stuff, it's probably not a person I care to talk to. So I just move it on. There's always going to be some people that provide a lot of data. The key for you is to be one of those people that provides a lot of data. Okay. We don't need books, but we do need to go ahead, and the magic is in providing in the small amount of time that you have. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So I call this 2Q, and that's like the name of my book that I have, 2Q Your Resume, which should be coming up, I guess, Q2 or something like this year. So what that is quantifying or qualifying the details on your resume. Again, getting away from the vague and generic statements and providing more information. The little example I gave here is I slew a dangerous beast. Okay, what is it? Is it a small little bunny rabbit or is it actually a big dragon? If you don't provide that information, people come up with their mind. If they know you're thinking that you're not like the most hero type of guy, they're probably going, yeah, it's probably closer to the rabbit, not anything bigger than that. So, again, without the details, most people, from my experience as a hiring manager, is most people just do basic jobs. And in the sense that if you tell me that you can handle this, I'm thinking you just barely handle it or you just do the job. You don't really do anything extra unless you tell me you do something extra. Then I could believe it. And again, it goes through is that throughout your entire resume? So that's kind of like what a 2Q is actually talking about. Okay, next slide, please. Sri, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. I try to get some examples. Most examples hard to go ahead and show the differences on a screen. So what I found was financial models. And again, this is why you TQ or TQ your without the information. If you just say that no financial models, this simple model, which is just a really generic one, or a more complex, and I apologize, this is not the crazy complex, but it's just to give a sample of the different the statement that I work on financial models. But are identified in that little statement. What you need to do is be able to provide more information so that way the reader understands the difference that you are standing at with that. Okay. And that's again the key to a 2Q resume. Next slide, please. Um, this is actually a sample that I provided with. I do resume writing as well, and what I did was I took the person's resume that they provided me, and I changed it after I interviewed them and got some more information from them. Okay, so the person, if you go through a few of these statements, and I'll explain my thinking and what I tried to do there. So the top statement for this the is the person's. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a resume that I worked on before with, and I apologize if anybody caught the last time, but so what we're doing here is the lady's first statement was, um, She utilized SAP for data collection and analysis, all right, and leading to a 15% improvement in inventory accuracy. One, when you look at this statement, I have no idea the size of the database that she was using or the analysis she was doing. 15% improvement of inventory. Okay, but I don't know what the inventory was, how large it was, what was the value of it. Um, and if you look at the piece, basically that where the red block is, that was just the entire part of her statement. She just had the company name, and then basically these are the bullets. So from this information, I couldn't tell if it was a large database or if it was just a small little, tiny shop. You can't tell. And with the following statements that she made, I also couldn't really tell. So she used Excel models for forecasting. Again, forecasting for what? How large was the inventory? What was she forecasting? What was the value she was forecasting? None of that information was provided. And the next statement, the same thing. Collaborated with the procurement teams and it reduced costs by 10%. Again, what were the costs? What was the work that she did? How valuable was it to the company? Or in this case, what was the value of the company? I have no idea with any of that information. And even the last statement, it's roughly the same thing. These are all statements that not that they're bad, but without any additional knowledge or the scope of what the job was, you can't really tell. And this is actually about, like I said, 80 to 90% of what I see, either through my resume writing service or as part of the hiring manager. Most resumes look like this. And that doesn't really provide a lot of information. And when you're seeing like 30, 40 of these at a time, they all look this way. It's hard to go ahead and why would you pick any of these people? I have no idea if her information was for a large company or a small company. So, talking to her and asking her a bunch of questions about what she provided, and she'd go through and gave me a bunch of information. And from that information, I created the bottom part of the resume for her. So I used a one or two sentences to provide scope to the job. And what I mean by that is to give your readers an idea of this is the kind of job I'm doing here. Okay. You can work in like a small company, but you're also very important. Or you can work in a very big company and be very insignificant in the job you're doing without any type of information, you can't really tell. Okay. In this case, I provide the revenue of the company that I actually found online. And then, from that, I could tell, okay, she did X about this. I also found out that she handles like 2,500 items in her inventory. And then out of that, the number of actual individual items, it's over 2 million. Once she provided the information, I was like, okay, that shows that you had a larger, at least like a 7-Eleven size inventory from the number of different items. But when you talk 2 million items, now you're talking that's probably more of a large warehouse or a large store. So she was handling all this by herself. And that is something that shows the how much work she's able to do. Okay. And it gives more of an indication than the top statements that just tell you that I did this and I did this. So she was explaining her daily tasks, but not really telling me what were her daily tasks involved with. Okay. And when she said she handled one of 15 brands worth 16 million, that's basically telling me now she's handling about 20% of the revenue for the company. That's significant. You don't put someone in charge of that much of a company's revenue unless you trust them. Okay. And that's what these statements down below are trying to build is build trust that, hey, I know what I'm doing. I can do a good job. And this is, I should at least be able to do all the tasks at a very decent process or quality. Not, I'm not a bad person at this because I probably wouldn't be trusted with this much money of the company. Okay. And then, like on the bottom line, she makes 13 orders worth 1.4 mil a month, and she's handling the 2,500 SKU items and over 2 million items in the inventory. All that together is telling me, okay, the 13 orders are probably large. It's not like one or two items. It's probably hundreds of items with thousands or millions of pieces to it. And that's what she's getting all these things in or handling them out. So that tells me she probably knows how to do the SAP interface. So she's familiar with how the databases work, how ordering works, procurement, all those things she already knows. Again, it's not saying how perfect she is, but neither were the statements she was making above. The difference between the two is I've given her scope to what she was asking for or what she was doing. So this tells anyone that, all right, this is not a beginner. This is not a basic person. She has a very good idea of what she's doing, and she's able to handle probably a little stress too, because if you're handling one fifth a company's revenue, chances are you can't be very timid. So tells me a lot about this person without telling me about the person. And that's what you need to build in your resume. Okay, let's go to the next one. This one, let's see if I get it up. Yeah. So this one also, I like this person. He was actually a butler or in charge of a wealthy person's estate. Okay, um, and as you could look from the items up top, basically he was providing just more of a generic statements to the type of work he was doing. Again, in this case, any person that's office managing or estate managing or etc would have that same skill set. You can't really tell the difference. Once again, I asked some questions about what he was doing. We went back and forth a few times, and I was able to find out, the size of the place he was doing, the number of people he was managing, the guest lists and stuff like that for the things that he served, which were, in this case, 400 guests, but they also included royalty and other dignitaries and stuff like that. So, again, a level of experience, professionalism, understanding, organization. You can't be in charge of all that and be someone that's very weakly organized, or someone that does not present a professional position because they probably would not be in charge. So again, he was also chairman of some associations for the immediate area. Again, that also provides a level of maturity, professionalism. It's showing things about the person without actually having to say, I'm a mature person, or I'm a very organized, but I'm a team player, those kind of things. He's saying these kind of things without actually doing it. The coolest thing about this guy is I also found out he is one of a few people, I guess, in the world right now qualified to or certified to go ahead and serve royalty. That was kind of an interesting thing, but he didn't have that anywhere on his resume. And of course, I put it at the top of his resume once I found that out, because that kind of made him stand out from the majority of the other people in the world that are just managing properties and stuff like that. So, again, this is going from basic statements that are explaining what you're doing. And if the resume is only one of the few resumes seen by the hiring manager, chances are you'll still get a call. Okay. But if you're going against hundreds, chances are you need something with more details to show what's the size and scope of the work environment that you're able to work in. Okay. So this next two slides more like wrapping up the actual thing. What to consider: most jobs are the same at different companies. If you're a project manager in one place, chances are 80 to 90% of the work is going to be the same at another company. So listing your tasks by just saying that I have meetings, I arrange this, I collaborate with this, that's kind of the same stuff everybody would say. And now, unless you tell me you provide details to that, where you're saying, like, I set up meetings between 250 different engineers and all this, or handle like 12 different groups, that's where you're starting to provide more information. Now I'm getting a picture of what you're capable of doing. Where if you just provide a basic statement, I have no idea if you're any good at your job, or if how large or how small you can handle things. So again, also most hiring managers, they know the job. All right. Most of the hiring managers are actually people that came from that job or one of those jobs. So a lot of the things people put in a generic resume are things that they actually already understand. So you don't need to tell them that you handle help desk tickets, or you make sales at a store. They already know that part. What they want to know is how good are you at doing that job? And just generic statements do not tell that. Okay. Another one is basically what I've just been explaining, and I'll drop down to the fourth one, which is provide scope. Okay. Um, Again, showing the size of the company, the size of your organization, the revenue, the number of people in an organization, all those things kind of give the hiring manager a visualization of what you're capable of, what you're doing. If you work, say you work at a McDonald's or a fast food restaurant, um, some fast food restaurants are really busy. Some of them are very slow. And until you tell me something about it, I don't know. So if you say you've handled the till, that could be, 5 people an hour, or it could be hundreds of people an hour. And the person doing this is not always the best person, but you as the hiring manager, you need to go ahead and visualize and say, can this person do the job, or would this person be bored at this job? If I handle, say, 20 or 30, maybe the person that only does 5 might not be able to handle it. It might stress them out. But also the same thing, someone that handles 100 or 200 a month or an hour, they might actually get bored at that job. So those are things that the hiring manager needs to know, and he could tell that when you start scoping your environment, you start telling them how many things you're doing and stuff. Okay. And also, again, the scope shows trust, all right, and the potential. Again, if you can handle 20% of a company's revenue and the company's revenue is like 25-30 million dollars, chances are if you have something that needs to be something similar, like $1 or $2 million in revenue, you can handle that easily. So that's a person you want to talk to, compared to someone that either doesn't list anything or someone that only handles like 100,000 in revenue. That person might not be able to handle it. And a person that doesn't tell you anything, probably you don't need to talk to unless you have no people that are providing the right information. But again, up to you. I usually went for give me a new batch of people instead of trying to pick people in that group. Okay. All right. Last things. So if you list tasks, say if you don't have achievements, and it's fair enough, not everybody has a list of achievements to have, but you need to provide scope to what you're doing. And again, if you list tasks, provide numbers. I talk to 25 customers. I build large buildings or small buildings. I do this, but give numbers. Again, think about talking to your peer group. You don't tell your peers, I manage projects. So what? We all do. The thing is, I manage projects that are multi-million dollar projects. I manage this, I manage that. Those are the things that you need to provide. Okay. And if you have achievements, I like to tell people to consider these following questions. What was the event? So you need to somehow put that in your resume statement. What did you do with it? And it could be as easy as I managed this. What was the scope? Again, was it for the larger organization? Was it just for a team? Was it a 25 terabyte database? Was it a large streaming service with 100,000 people watching it hourly? And then what was the value to the company? And that could, the scope and the value could be the same or it could be different. But you answer those questions as much as you can with each resume statement. You can't go wrong. Okay. There. Okay. Next part. Oh, here we go. How to get a reader to keep reading. Okay. And this goes back to the idea that you only have a few seconds to impress or interest the hiring manager. And in doing so, you normally have to go ahead and have it in the top part of your the first page. If you can't get someone excited in that piece, chances are they're not going to move. So I highly suggest that you stay away from those vague statements, the objectives, because you're you're applying for a job. Chances are either the recruiter gave your resume because they thought you could do the job, or you're trying to get that job. So if you tell me that you're looking for this type of job, I kind of already know that. So you're wasting that space right there. Again, same thing with a list of skills or just list of words of things that you do. In the old day, or when you're only getting a few resumes, that's fine. But nowadays, everybody's putting stuff like on there. you list that you're say you're Cisco certified, or not that you work on Cisco equipment, or you work on these type of trucks, or you handle this type of baking systems, or you can work on these electrical systems. If you just put the words there, but you don't really give any idea of what you do with them, you're just listing stuff, and that's good for keyword filtering, but put that at the bottom. Okay, that's not really telling me anything. And when you have 20 to 30 resumes all saying the same thing, there's no real value to it sitting at the top. So give more information or put it down below. Okay. And oh, there you go. I pretty much answered the rest of that. So here's an example, and this is actually my kind of an older summary of skills. So what I would do is I put my contact information, and then I basically summarize my career, and that's what the items on the left side are, is from my actual career. And if you notice, what I did was I took some things and I aggregated the number of years I did a particular skill set. Okay. Like in the top case, managing teams. All right. So if you're going for a management type job, that's a very important piece of information. You know, how long have you been managing, and what are the size of the teams you have been managing? And then how much time I had with IT, project manager, data center experience, all those type of things. A person could quickly go through this and get a very decent idea of what I'm capable of, or at least what I've been through and done. Okay. Granted, not all of it will tell you how good it is, but hopefully I have the statements below that will actually tell you more about how I did things and why I did things. But this right here should just be okay. He's kind of like, if you're looking for a senior data center manager, potentially this would look like I'm able to do that. If you're looking for a junior data center person, you're probably too experienced. You'd probably be bored with the job. So you can get that information by doing this. Granted, not everybody will have this amount of information. That's fine. The key is to give me something short and sweet that tells me what you're capable of. And when you do that, then I look below. So if you do say you're in management somewhere, I want to see it somewhere down below saying that you manage people. You don't just want to put it up there and then have nothing below, because then I kind of think you're lying or you're not quite sure. And that asks, or that presents a question. And the more questions your resume provides, the less likely I will talk to you. Why worry about these questions? Remember, if I call you, it's about a 30-minute call at least that I'm probably going to talk to you. And that 30 minutes is time that I will never get back. And if you end up being someone that has nothing related to what I'm looking for, I just wasted 30 minutes. So it's better that I just not take a chance on someone like that. I just move them off and go to people that look a little closer to what I'm looking for. That way, if I do burn 30 minutes, at least there was a chance you had the skill sets and things that I needed. I hope that helps. Okay. Other things that you can look at is like the languages you speak. Okay, that's a good thing. It helps people realize, okay, they more than one language. Uh, your degrees, certifications, all those kind of things also matter. So it doesn't have to be just your aggregated skills. It could be an achievement that's something you did really great, but make sure you also mention it below. And like I said, your degrees or something like that, your certifications or your languages. Okay. And that's pretty much it. I hope that helped you guys. Please, like I said, basically I have a book coming out in Q2, which will discuss this things, the information, and also I'll have a journal and some other smaller books related to that as well, if you just want one particular topic or another. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, James, sir. It was complete full of knowledge, and I can say that I have never gone through such resume inspections that the way you explain. I have never seen before, because the person who is sitting next the other side of the table, we always tend to be like fearing that guy, and we don't know how to explain. At the very moment we become very nervous. So
Hmm.
thank you, James, for those insights. And I believe this is something many of us needed to hear, not from those theoretical things, but from you, like a experience, hiring experience personnel. Now we will move into a Q&A session where we will take questions from our audience. But before that, I promised everyone that there is a surprise for whoever is watching us today or joining us today. I would like to share that is for those who are interested in improving their resume, especially like people like me. What I did, I copied my friend's resume and I just changed my name and things. So those who are really interested to improve their resume, getting a professional feedback, James has kindly agreed to offer us $20 discount on his resume review or CV preparation services. So if you reach out to him, do simply mention that I attended a Miswaak Let's Talk session, and so that he knows where you are coming from. Now let's take some questions from the audience. If anyone joining us today, if you have any question over the Zoom, please unmute yourself. This is the moment you can ask questions directly to a guy who has like 20 years plus experience. So anything you want to know, please unmute yourself and ask questions to James. Any anyone, any volunteer? Trevor Nelson, Upama Roth, Samina Sarwar, Shahriar Rahman. Okay, no questions? Mm-hmm.
No questions for me, but thank you. This has been a great session. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for bearing with us this long. But over through Facebook comment section, James, I have some questions. If none of here has any, I would
Sure.
like to bring those questions before you. First question that came from our colleague, which is from a hiring manager's perspective, how do you differentiate between a candidate? I think you have already mentioned how do you differentiate a candidate who has experience and one who can actually deliver impact purely from resume. Over to you, James.
Well, yeah, basically it's well, you never know for sure until you actually talk to the person or see the person doing work. But what you the first clue you can have is just the way the information is presented in the resume. Again, if the resume is generic or vague, what you don't really have an idea of how good this person could do the job. Okay. And if that's the case, if you got like 30, 40 resumes and almost all of them are that same way, you know most of these people probably can do the job, but how well they can do the job, you don't know. And you, again, like I said, each call you make is roughly about 30 minutes of your time. And if you did 30 people, that's 900 minutes worth of your life that you got to call these people and and find out. And if you find out that none of them really have the skill set you need, you just burn that 900 minutes, which is like a day and a half. Um, Most people probably would not be allowed to go ahead and spend a day and a half just making calls for resume review. If you did that too many times, your managers would probably look at you and probably think they need a new manager to be in that position. So you need to be a little more selective. And by doing that is, again, you look for 2Q information or the quantifying and qualifying data on a resume. And if the people don't have it, I apologize, but 90% of the time we just push those off to the side. Don't even look at them. And they could be some very smart, intelligent people, but the way they presented their information, it just wasn't worth it. So always please add the information. Give someone an indication of what you're doing in the job. If you just tell me if you're listing the task, I already know the tasks for the job. I don't need to hear them again. But you're not telling me how good you do that job. If you don't tell me how good you're doing the job, chances are I don't want to spend time talking to you. So hopefully that gives you a little more motivation to go ahead and provide a 2Q type of resume.
Right,
Thank you.
right. Thank you. I hope, Kate, that answers your question. The next one is coming from Rakib from Bangladesh. How should candidates position themselves on a resume when they are competing globally, not just locally?
Okay. Well,
Especially when their experience may not come from well-known companies.
okay. Well, it's not so much the company names. I mean, I imagine there are some hiring managers are just like everybody else. There are differences in what they're looking for and what they want. One of the things you don't want to do as a hiring manager is you don't want to hire bad people, or you don't want to hire people that can't do the job, or that quit easy all the time, or that do something really bad. The more you do of that, the less good you look as a manager, in the sense that you can't really pick people well, and you don't want that either. So people are more conservative and tried to go ahead and find people that they believe are actually going to do a good job. So it's not so much your company name. There will be some hiring managers that care about a company name, but not all do. Okay. I never cared about a name of the company, because you can work at Google, but do a very small, tiny job. So if you say you're a network guy at Google, you might be in charge of 1 or 2 lab racks worth of equipment, but I can find 10 people at much smaller companies that worked on global stuff. When I worked at it was first Seagate Software, then became Veritas, then became Symantec. And I was a network engineer at that place. We grew, and I had like 100 sites around the world. We had call centers in India. We had, networking or engineering centers around the world. I helped built out a lot of the places in Asia. That and the company at the time was a lot smaller when it was a Seagate and then Veritas compared to the Symantec. And so it wasn't a big name company, but I gained a lot of that experience before we became Symantec, which is one of the larger company, or was one of the larger companies at the time. But it doesn't really matter where you come from. You could have a ton of experience, and you just need to present that in your resume. So it's not where you did these, it's how much you did. What did you do? Chances are, if a router works in Japan or the US, it works well in Bangladesh as well. And if you know how to program it there, you know how to program it elsewhere too. There's always going to be different ways of doing things. There's also different company or countries also have a standard resume that they prefer. Like the Japanese resumes are a lot different than the resumes that I work on. But the resumes I work on, I believe, will help you globally. Because a lot of big companies, I've looked for people in India, in Europe, in Africa as well, and as well as America. And the resumes I needed to see look the way I present them. But there could be a different resume in Bangladesh or other countries that you need to do that is normal for that area. So please take that, but maybe you can use the same or 2Q information to help you provide the information into those resumes. Thank you.
Right. I kind of agree with Rakib because, so when we apply from Bangladesh or other Asian countries, we do feel kind of less confident that, okay, is my resume going to be read out
Hmm.
by the foreigner or so? But yeah, thank you for that confident, so that we can at least have a hope that, okay, no, my resume is not going to be thrown out. But mentioning that, like I have taken note throughout this session that posting job that cost really money. So we need to think about that hiring manager. We don't waste their time. We give some qualitative data in our resume. Before going to the next segment, I would like to also apologize to the attendees today for the technical glitch. Without a technical glitch, there is no online session. So also apologize to our guest speaker, James Grimm. James, at this point, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your time, your experience with us. And I want to request all my viewers today that please do visit James's website. And as he said, we wish James for his upcoming book that is going to be released in Q2. James, we really want to have another session on your books, sir. We want to learn from you, sir. You have a lot of experience, I guess, in multiple sectors, as I mentioned earlier that you are from Navy, and you also have like award-winning book. So we do want to talk about those in our later segments. So
Thank you.
anyone, if anyone have any questions, we still can get one or two questions. You can unmute and ask a question directly to our respected guest, James Grimm, about your resume, about job seeking opportunities. Okay. This
Well,
session will be
if I may.
yes, sir.
Okay, just a heads up too for those that want to consider me doing the resume writing. What I normally do is you come to me, provide me your resume, and I will give a free feedback from a hiring manager's perspective. So I'm not going to tell you how to fix everything, but what I will do is tell you, all right, I don't like the way this looks, or this didn't give me, or this is vague. I have no idea what you mean by that, or this is good and this is bad. So I will give you that for free. So all you have to do is just mail me to the email address on the screen, and just say again that you saw this on Miswaak, and then also that you were interested in the free review. In the free review response, I will give you a quote for the service cost. And it's up to you. You can just take the free review and use that to go ahead and work on your resume yourself. I'm happy that you did that. Or if you wish to engage, then we will go ahead and I'll basically quote you this cost. You send the money, and then what we'll do is I will take or create a list of questions, and sometimes it's rather extensive, on based upon your resume. I'll send that back to you, and you need to answer me. So it's we are working on your resume together, because without the details, I can't really do much for you. In fact, I would highly suggest that if you ever go to anyone else for resume writing, if they just take your resume, chances are they're not going to go and do anything but pretty it up. You really more than likely you need them to show the or get details from you. How many of this you did, what you did this, how large was this company, how was this? Those are the details you need, because then they can go ahead and make the good resumes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At the very last moment, we got another question from
Sure.
one of our one of our guests
Sure.
named Peter. He's saying that thank you, James, for wonderful wonderful session. How do you
Thank you.
see AI is changing the hiring strategy?
The hiring strategy, it's I have not experienced it yet in the places that I've worked. I think they might be using a little of that to go ahead and filter through resumes, more like an advanced type of ATS or filtering system. ATS is actually, like I said, just a database, and you use keywords to filter on stuff. So I imagine they're probably using a little for that. I've heard of a lot of different ways people are doing it, but I haven't really seen it yet. Um, I I mean, your resume technically is a open book, in the sense that I can quickly look at a resume and have a decent idea of what you are capable of as you present yourself. Not maybe not as you actually are. You could be a very smart and knowledgeable technician, engineer, whatever. But if you didn't present yourself that way, visually seeing what I'm seeing gives me all I can actually do. So um, I wouldn't worry too much about the AI being part of. Again, if you make your resume the best you can, you will find yourself getting calls. Now, whether you match up to what they want based upon their interviewing or testing or whatever, that's a different story, right? So I mean, I'm one of the problems here in Japan we have is that Japanese has become a high level requirement for most jobs, and my Japanese is not very good. But I do get a lot of calls. I get quite a few calls a week, every week still, with recruiters or companies looking at my resume, seeing it on site online, and ask me, "Hey, we like this. Can you do this?" And then the first question, usually either I ask or they ask, is, "What's your Japanese like?" And then my Japanese is conversational. Then they're like, "Ah, okay, thank you, but we're looking for someone that can speak a business level Japanese." So as long as you have a resume that looks like a 2Q resume, and you have the skill sets and the things that people need, you will be valuable. AI is not going to go ahead and be a problem for you. So please don't worry about that. Please don't worry about ATS. Make your resume the best you can. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter, for your question. So we only have 1 more minute to go. Thank you so much, James, again, for sharing your time, your knowledge, and your experience with us. One thing that I want to say that this session will be documented and published on our miswaakofficial.com and shared globally so more people can benefit from your insights. And again, the one as James mentioned, and I also mentioned that if you want to review your resume from James, please do mention that I have attended a Miswaak session live. And to our audience, if you found this session valuable, share it with your friends and network. Do subscribe to our channel and stay connected with Miswaak for more such sessions. We look forward to seeing you again in our next session. Thank you, James, again. Once again, thank you for all our attendees to bear with us this long. We see you again. Till then, take care.